Welcome back to Spotlight Television. People are living longer, and this is expected to continue. In fact, the U.S. Census Bureau estimates that the average life expectancy will increase an additional 6 years by 2060. While a longer life can influence how people think about the future, it can also add to the challenges of retirement planning and the need to create a sustainable source of lifetime income. As always, you should consult your financial representative to determine what may be best for your individual needs. But today, I have the pleasure to talk to one of the best. He is one of the country's top wealth advisors who has been helping Americans since 1972 minimize their taxes to maximize their retirement. He created the famous proprietary untaxed family wealth smiling retiree process method. He's a renowned IRMA specialist and is known for providing tax tips that even your current tax preparer may not know about. Please welcome to Spotlight Television, Navi Dowty. Navi, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
Very good. It's a pleasure to have you on Spotlight. It's such an interesting time to talk about this topic with so much going on in the economy. But why don't you take a second and tell the audience a little bit about yourself, how long you've been doing this, and tell the audience just a little bit about Navi Dowty.
Well, I've been doing this for over 40 years, as you mentioned. I worked in corporate America for a few years after college, and then they sent me out into the field, and then after a couple of years, they wanted me to come back to the home office, and I said, you know, I've been investing in real estate, doing better, making more in that than I was working, and so I didn't want to go back to the home office, so I just started building buildings, and that's how I got into tax saving for people. I always remember I was sitting in my office with a cardiologist, and when I started building apartments, I noticed that the biggest thing that the tenants complained about was sound. So I developed this sound system between the apartments, and I had a mock-up of it sitting on my desk. And I showed this to the cardiologist, and he said, "Oh, that's great. What about the tax savings?" Next day, same thing with a orthodontist. He's there, you know, and I'm showing him my fabulous system, and he said, "Great. Does that really work?" "Yeah." "How about the tax savings?" So after a while, I finally figured out that's really all they cared about. They didn't care about my great system. All they cared about was the tax savings. So since then, everything that I do has revolved around legally and ethically, has to be legally and ethically, right in the code, saving people taxes that they don't necessarily have to pay.
Have you ever seen a more challenging time when you talk about inflation running as high as 9.2%? Certainly it's come down a little bit now, but still running way hotter than obviously the Federal Reserve would like. Federal Reserve raising rates at a pace we've never seen before in this country. People thinking about really living check to check, never mind retirement. But people who are still thinking about retirement are getting close, thinking, man, am I going to outlive my money? Have you ever seen a more challenging time for what you do than these last couple of years?
I haven't, and you're right. In fact, this is the time that I developed my process for, because as you say, when people are nearing retirement, think of it, over 70 million people are going into retirement. If you go back to the last time we had massively rising inflation back in the 70s, the baby boomers were just starting to go to work. We were a creditor nation then, meaning that everybody owed us money. So exactly the opposite now. The baby boomers are all retiring, and we're a pretty big debtor nation now, over 30 trillion in debt. So things are completely different. We've had a long upswing in markets, you know, massively lowered interest rates since 1982, in fact. In fact, we hit the lowest interest rates in human history a couple years ago.
All right, Tax Secrets for the Smiling Retiree with IRMA, second edition. You made a point, I believe, of putting with IRMA on the cover. Let's talk about why you do that, why you want to bring so much information to people as far as taxes and retiring and how to plan for that, but specifically with IRMA, because I don't think I've ever heard of it before I talked to you. So tell me, what is IRMA and why is it so important for people to understand what it is?
Almost nobody's heard of IRMA, which is really, really shocking. IRMA is simply income-related monthly adjustment amount. That's what it means, and it relates to your Medicare cost. And we say it's a secret tax. It really isn't secret. It's hidden right out in the open. The thing that's a little bit tricky about it is that when you turn on Medicare, the cost that you have for that Medicare, they look back 2 years. So imagine, typical person retires at 65. Now, granted, people are living longer now, but let's just say they retire at 65, turn on Medicare. They have to turn on Medicare when they retire. They look back 2 years. Well, what was your income 2 years ago? You certainly had a higher wages 2 years before you have in the year that you retire. So that's going to affect the IRMA tax. And we, like you point out, I spent most of my career helping people just with income tax. But IRMA, there's a lot of taxes. So let's just go back to that for a second. They tell us that Tax Freedom Day now is past the end of April. So imagine that. That's for the average person. Average person works the first third of the year just to pay their income tax, right? And all their taxes. For the people watching this, probably will be longer. Might be the end of April, end of May, even into June. And you pointed out 40%, but then there's all kinds of surcharges on top of that. So a lot of people are really hitting 50% brackets. IRMA is just another tax. If you went to buy health insurance before you retire, what would they base the cost on? Your health, right? Once you retire, however, and turn on Medicare, they don't base your cost on your health. They base it on your wealth, or we should say your income.
You write these books, like we talked a little bit about, Tax Secrets for the Smiling Retiree. You've written some other bestsellers. Tell me a little bit about why you write these books. Tell me about the reaction from people who read it and go, man, I never knew that. Why do you write these books?
Well, the first one was Tax Tips, Financial Success for the Smiling Retiree. I just took a compilation of a lot of the things I had written and sent to clients and put it in a book. But the next one that I have on the docket, I have the cover already made, and the outline is Income Secrets for the Smiling Retiree, because that's really what people need in retirement.
Even when you look at families who, say, have done really well, and they talk about maybe putting everything into a revocable trust to pass on to the kids to try to, protect their assets. God forbid the parents have to go into, whatever the future holds. But when you look at 401ks and these retirement things, and you're going, well, you're saving money to eventually, you're just going to have to pay the taxes on it. So the money's not working for you. And even with some family trusts, you run into those kind of issues where it just ends up being the kids who have to be the one who end up paying it.
And probably at a higher tax rate, because the parents are now in their 80s and not in many cases having huge income. The kids are right at their peak earnings when they inherit it. So they pay several taxes. They pay income tax. They may pay generation skipping tax. I just had somebody last week. Somebody had set up a trust for them thinking that, and they thought it would avoid tax because they left it to their grandkids. Well, it's generation skipping tax. You may have inheritance tax. Different states have inheritance tax. We don't think that much for most people about estate tax now because it's over $12 million exemption, but that, remember, is dropping in half January 1st, 2026, and there's a big push. We just had one of the consultants I've got said that their lobbyist called an emergency meeting a couple weeks ago and said they're telling us that they have to sunset that law, that tax law, earlier than 2026. Who knows? So we want to deal with the current law, but keep in mind what's probably coming.
Yeah.
And rising taxes is one of them.
Yeah.
In fact, here's my ultimate financial tsunami, and the top thing is taxes. Rising inflation, rising interest rates, and rising taxes.
Boy, how accurate is that right now? If rising interest rates, rising inflation, and rising taxes.
I sketched that out on a napkin sitting in a conference in New Zealand early in 2016, hoping that wouldn't be true, but certainly that's what's coming.
What's your feeling on Social Security moving forward?
Well, you notice they used to talk a lot about fixing entitlements, and as you just mentioned, I haven't heard that lately. The IRMA tax may be the plan to fix that, because you don't have to means test Social Security. It's already means tested by the IRMA tax. So kind of under the radar, it's hidden in plain sight.
What's your most important point that you want to leave with the audience today on everything we've discussed? What's the most important point you want them to know? And then I also want you to let people know how they can get in touch with you, find out more about what you do, find out about your books. And I know you do a lot of traveling, you do a lot of speaking, seminars on the road. Give everybody where they can get in touch with you as well.
NavyDowty.com. You can go there. You can go to, just type my name into YouTube. You can look. I've got probably 200 tax tips on there. Call my office, 630-893-4142. It's on all my books. You have to change your strategy when you go into retirement. Now, the billionaires, it doesn't matter. But for the vast majority of Americans, it's vitally important. You asked about how do we pick somebody to work with. I missed this, probably most important thing of all. Make sure that the people you're working with know about taxes. Don't let somebody tell you that the phrase, don't let the tax tail wag the dog. The taxes are the dog. They're the big dog. Taxes and inflation are going to eat everything up if you don't deal with it. So just make sure who you're working with knows about taxes, has experience in distribution and preservation of your money. That's the most critical thing once you get into retirement. You have to have the income. That's the biggest thing I would say. You know, if you think about what can you do with your money, you can put it in stocks, bonds, real estate, cash, or commodities. That's it. All the financial products are just some combination of those. And they can only do 5 things for you. They can give you growth, they can give you income, they can give you tax benefits, they can give you liquidity, or they can give you some level of protection or not. That's all there is. If you had $50 million or more, you probably have your own office with people employed to take care of everything, you know, CPAs and tax attorneys and so on. For people that don't have that much money, what I did was I started my own, what's in effect a virtual family office, my Untaxed Family Wealth company. And what that does is tries to take the techniques that we use for people that have got $30-40 million and bring them down to the normal people that don't have that much money. Because everybody says the rich don't pay taxes. Well, the truth is the rich do pay less taxes because they hire people to make sure that they're not paying excess tax. And so that's what my Untaxed Family Wealth family office does for people. Our mission is to try and save America's retirement accounts.
Well, it's been a fascinating conversation. Again, NavyDowty.com online is one place to go. I know your YouTube, but again, you can check out your books. Your books are available on Amazon. Books are available wherever books are sold.
Get on your favorite online bookseller.
All right, very good. Navy Dowty, it's been great to have you here. It's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on Spotlight Television.
Glad to be here.
And I want to thank you for watching. Again, NavyDowty.com will link to all Navy sites, YouTube, books as well. I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time right here on Spotlight Television.